The pot of gold has been found, and inside was football. What could be better than that? Happy St. Patrick's Day and happy start of spring practice from the Podcast Daily. It is Monday. We're going to get a little viewing guide from Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. Bill, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, slancha. That's the word, right? That's what you should say at Bennigan's. Put that on your napkin at Bennigan's. And get you in the St. Patrick's Day spirit, right?
Authentic Irish dining experience. Bennigan's, right, as it's well known.
Find me a better burger than a Big Irish. Yeah, fired up for the start of spring practice. It'll be nice to watch football again. What do you think, you guys? Generally, what it'll be like? We don't get to watch a ton of it. We get like 2 this week, and then the Student Appreciation Day. Student Appreciation Day will be like realish football, but this week will be just like guys kind of running around, I'd imagine. But even that is like, it'll be good to see because of some of these new faces, some of the transfers especially. So I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also not entirely sure what to expect.
Doesn't Monday and Wednesday have to be the acclimation period? Like, so it's not. Yeah, it's not going to be much.
That's why we get to watch it
at all.
And
we'll get 1 day of quasi-real football on April 5th or whatever. But tomorrow, specifically Monday, the first day of camp, is just about seeing who's out
tomorrow. It's today. Today is St. Patrick's Day.
Buy a calendar, guy.
We're being honest with people.
Oh,
in 2025, we're not. That joke has run its course.
It's not a joke. It's real to me.
Oh, all right. Well, so is wrestling. So anyhow, Monday is really just about seeing how players look from the end of the season and now. I'm most interested, as always, by the incoming freshmen. I've talked to, I think, of the 21 guys, I think it's 20, maybe 19 guys that have enrolled early. I think like every person I've asked specifically to this point has told me they've gained between 18 and 20 pounds since they got on campus. So I'm just really interested to see how those guys look. Because with this team and so much inexperience returning, you're going to need to see some guys step up. And I'm really interested to see the young guys, how they fit. And of course, day one, we're always taking stock of, who changed their uniform number, et cetera. We know Brandon Ennis has switched to number 1. We know Jermaine Matthews has switched to number 7. We'll see who else among the less social media conscious of the team has made their switch. But I'm just excited to see people, no one's hitting, no one's running, no one's doing anything, but it's just nice to see.
They're going to run. They'll run.
They'll jog.
There is no jogging in the Woody. There's only one speed in there. You think they'll just give Sonny Styles the blocko to start spring camp, or is he going to have to wait until August?
He'll have to wait. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I know he will. It's a great question, Bill, because it's not, I don't think by accident that Monday and Wednesday we get open viewing periods and they have to go through the acclimation period. Ryan Day talked about, a week and a half ago, about how there might be more days throughout this camp where they don't take full advantage of full pads, full contact, full go scrimmage opportunities the way that they have, because they went through such a long season that they need to get rested and recovered. So we won't get to see a ton of it. As you said, there's 3 days. Maybe they'll add one more. Typically, we wind up getting about 5, and sometimes they restrict it up front, and then it gets treated as a bonus and a celebration when they throw another open practice or 2 our way. But that, I think, would probably happen because there's not going to be as many full go opportunities throughout this camp. And I think it makes total sense to me. Normally, I'd be like, well, why are you not maximizing practice opportunities? Well, they got to do that, including with early enrollees and transfer guys throughout the month of January. They had real practices and real opportunities for these guys to go through that. So they're not having to count and maximize all 15 of these because they already have a bonus backlog from January, which I think is great. And it's just another different way that we have to think about Ohio State and Ryan Day managing a 12 or 13 month calendar for a season.
I was a little confused by this. They are practicing 3 times this week. We're just only going to be in there twice. I thought, I initially saw the thing. I was like, oh, they're only practicing twice in the first week, but that's not the case. We're just, there's no media availability for the 3rd practice, which I guess is on Friday of this week. So I guess we'll have to guess what happened on that particular day. No, it's like, I'm not like super, I don't know what the right word for it is. Like bothered by it. Like they are trying to I think like make something manageable that feels a little unmanageable now with the way that the college football calendar is set up. So it's going to be a little out of the ordinary, I suppose. We'll just have to make the most of those 3 opportunities, and hopefully we'll get a 4th. But even if these first 2 are not fully padded and not full scrimmage, I think if we're in there for an hour both those days, we'll at least see some like competitive stuff, right? That I think might be able to tell us a little bit about how guys are stacking up and where they are when spring starts.
How much of this do you guys think is just Ryan Day trying to manage the expectations from the outside? Last year, heading into spring, everything was championship or bust. All the guys returning. It was like a celebration throughout spring of saying, "Hey, we're leaning into this hype." And when you have a team that's returning only 8 starters and obviously a lot of changes that are happening to the roster, how much is this, do you think, of Ryan Day just saying, I don't want people to come in here and get the wrong impression about this team early and set a weird tone? Because I think if we watch 5 practices, 6 practices like we did last spring, there's a tendency to do a little paralysis by analysis. And I think that we could see a lot of things this spring that don't necessarily look right at times because of all the changes. And because of the way the schedule is. And I wonder if Ryan Day is just trying to insulate and protect his team a little bit from too much of us going crazy.
Well, I mean, sorry, we're going to go crazy no matter what. And we're going to overanalyze everything we see regardless. So that's not going to change. I think it tends to line up when there is a quarterback competition or a veteran at that spot has to be replaced, that the amount of practices get scaled back, because that's where all the eyeballs go. And that's where the overreactions and overanalysis always happen without fail, is at that quarterback spot. So it's not, to me, I don't think it's a reflection of pulling back opportunities to watch because you're worried about paralysis by analysis, except at that position of quarterback, to stop watching that and to just let those guys go out there, Julian saying, Lincoln Keenholz and Tavian St. Clair, without having to have every throw or 5 days of throws or 6 days of throws picked apart, because that's like one of the only things I think that any of us could watch and like leave with opinions on. I mean, Bill's going to be down there watching one-on-ones for offensive linemen and forming some opinions, and he's good at that. But like, if even when they're throwing over that net, 1-inch throws or working on accuracy, like that's the stuff that is trackable to amateur observers like me. So I think it just lines up because there's a situation at quarterback and not a reflection of anything else on the roster as a whole. I could be wrong about that.
So you agree with me that he's trying to make sure we see less in order to avoid having too much in the way of expectations that are either or evaluations that are either incomplete or straight up incorrect.
I agree with you, but I think it is only because of the quarterback specific. And I don't know if you mentioned that part of it. I think that's the explanation for it.
I do think that that's probably obviously the primary reason for that. Yes.
Because I don't know where else that would even happen.
Yeah.
Offensive line.
Offensive. Yeah. Honestly, it could be maybe a thought that there's just not going to be that much to see. Like I still don't know how much like actual football is going to be played this spring. Like I know Ryan Day said they're going to play it in the spring game, and I believe they're going to try to play some. I think they're going to play some on that Student Appreciation Day, because that's like a quasi, not a dress rehearsal for the spring game, but like it's a usually fairly competitive day. But like in these midweek practices, I do think are going to be a lot of individual. A lot of guys who were on the team major parts last year, just like not doing a whole lot. I would love to be in there watching it anyway, but I don't know that. I think maybe I agree with you, Berm. I think that there's always an inclination, like when we get to watch a lot of stuff, to like make fully formed opinions in April about the Ohio State football team. And because they're probably not going to be doing many things that would like rightfully lead you to any conclusions about anything, well, maybe it's just best to not see them to begin with. So I don't know. I guess I'm hopeful that maybe later in spring there'll be like one other opportunity, because I guess prior to the spring game and that other Student Appreciation Day, because things do tend to crystallize a little bit toward the end of spring ball, but early on, like I don't, as much as I like offensive line play, I don't need to watch 2 hours of individual drill of offensive line play. So if that's all that we're missing, I think we're okay. Yeah.
Oh my
You know,
gosh. I can't believe you said that.
change man
Huh.
this year.
Huh.
I used to be someone who wanted to watch as much practice as possible. And while I enjoy it, I understand that it's probably not as informative as I pretend it is sometimes.
I've been at that point for a while, and if there are people that think that it sounds like we're just complaining about the 3 open viewing periods, I do think that it could be more, but I don't think that all 15 have to be. And I thought 5 was like the sweet spot. You can get some updates, as Berm said, whether that's at the start to see some of the physical development, at the midway point, if there are position battles that are materializing, and maybe some people involved with the ones that you weren't expecting. We saw that last year at safety. We saw that CJ Hicks had a really good spring. Sonny Styles was talking about that on 20 Forever on Friday on the podcast daily about, he needed to step it up to match some of the energy that CJ Hicks was playing with. Like, that stuff I think is great. And I don't think it has to be tracked on a day in, day out basis, because frankly, we're not capable of doing that. I'm not a football coach, and I don't get to go watch the film of the practice when it's done. Byrne does, apparently. He's got it all coming to his phone, but I don't have that ability. So it's more like tracking progress. And I don't think that it has, I just don't think that it has to be done on a day in, day out basis. I would probably have done the schedule. If it was going to be 3, I would have said, let's have every Monday throughout camp. That would have been my preference. Like, I would have staggered it differently. And because there's going to be a period, if I am going to sound like I'm complaining or begging for a change, like next week, there's multiple post-practice availabilities where we won't have seen anything. Like, it's difficult to ask questions about that if you're just saying, hey, did this guy have a good practice? Did that guy have a good practice? They're going to say yes for all of them. It's like, why are you doing it this way? How are you going to address the depth? All the, what's changed from week 1 to week 2 for this guy or that position or this scheme? Like, that's a different matter. So that would be the only complaint that I have about it. The total number of practices, whatever they give us, we're going to go cover it and learn as much as we possibly can. But I don't necessarily love the way that it is set up in terms of the dates.
Yeah, it could be better. Yeah, yeah. That's all right. We don't have to talk more about logistics of what we get to see and what we don't get to see.
Let's talk about this. We've sort of done this over the last few weeks, but I think as we hit the day, St. Patrick's Day, what is your favorite part of Jig's dinner? I'm just kidding. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about.
I forgot about that made up thing.
I had never heard of that thing. Was that last year or 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Did you mention that?
That was like 2 weeks ago. I went to a Jig's dinner on.
No, last year you said go in the Jig's dinner. We were just like, what is that?
Oh, you guys are uncultured, which is weird. Isn't Philly like really Irish?
Yeah, but I've never heard that. We just go eat corned beef and cabbage and don't call it anything.
Interesting. Anyway, but Bill,
I don't have a favorite part. I've never been to one, Berm.
Well, yeah, I mean, whatever. You guys are.
You didn't invite me to one this year either.
You need to get out. I'm sure some SIP has some Jig's dinner on Monday night.
It's closed on Monday.
Or maybe Roosters. Does Roosters have any Irish food we can dig into after Snap Judgments later today on Monday? Okay, so Bill, Austin and I talked about this on last Thursday's 3 Thoughts Thursday as far as the one position battle, one position group that you're most specifically watching. And I want you to narrow down. I brought up the right tackle situation as far as the starter and the backup. What is the one spot for you that is going to in fact, you cannot mention the offensive line.
Okay, fair.
Okay, what is the one spot on this team that you're hoping to glean the most from on Monday and Wednesday as we get the hour of watching Ohio State this week?
The nickel position, I think. And I don't know if that will have an opportunity to do that, but I mostly just want to get a better idea of like who's in that mix, because like I know Tim Walton was asked specifically about Davis and Iguodala playing inside when we talked to him last week, and kind of said like probably not. We know with Lorenzo Styles Jr. is there, but then who else is kind of my question. And maybe it's a case that they're going to run a bunch of guys through there to see who looks good and who looks comfortable and who doesn't, and that's fine too. But I would just like to see that myself, because I don't feel like I have a great understanding of what exactly it's going to look like. Because even for some of the other, like the right tackle, whatever, the guard spot, I feel like I at least know who is in the mix, and I don't know that I really know that at all for the nickel spot outside of Lorenzo Styles. So I would like to leave this first week, or at the very least spring ball, I guess, after 15 practices, knowing who I should be paying attention to in that competition.
We assume it's 15 practices. We don't know for sure they're actually going to practice those other 13 days.
15 get-togethers, 15 scheduled get-togethers.
Okay, Austin, my question for you, which player on Monday afternoon, once we walk out of the Woody Hayes Athletic Center and you check the Twitter or the X or whatever the hell you call it nowadays, when you check it, who is the one player Ohio State fans and other media are going to be talking about going, oh my gosh, you should have seen blank?
So I think the way that this spring is going to be structured with so much probably 7-on-7 and passing attack stuff, and the fact that Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Brandon Ennis to a lesser extent aren't going to need a ton of reps, the person that I think I'm going to overreact to is not going to be a surprise to anyone on the podcast daily, but I think everyone will get a look. There will be, remember when last year on the first day, JJ just reached down casually and plucked that ball off of the shoe tops by the sideline, and we're like, how did that guy just do that? I think Mylan Graham's going to have 10 of those opportunities during, especially if they're throwing it around and chucking it over the yard, Monday, Wednesday, Student Appreciation Day. I think because you have to get reps, someone has to be out there for the quarterbacks to catch the football, and Julian Sand and Lincoln Keynotes and Tavian St. Clair have to throw it. And if you don't need those top 3 wide receivers to do a ton, and they need to work and develop chemistry with those guys, I'm not saying that they should be in bubble wrap the entire time, but Mylan Graham did not get in game action last year, and we know that the practices were really impressive. We both heard and saw that throughout his freshman year. I think he'll do something early on in practice that people will be like, oh, that's that next guy. That's that next right there. And I think it will have social media buzzing. And I know that that's not a crazy pick because we've been talking about him a ton, but I think it has to come from in the secondary or wide receiver to make that kind of impact. Because we're not going to see them put on the pads and do inside drill on Monday or Wednesday. There won't be opportunities for James Peoples or CJ Donaldson at running back to wow people. So I think it has to come from those two spots. And I think if we see Mylan Graham battling with Devin Sanchez, then that's probably going to be something that people talk about a lot. So I'm going to take both my normal answer, which is Mylan Graham, and your normal answer, which is Devin Sanchez.
Nice.
Bill, who would your guy be? Because mine is actually CJ Donaldson. I think people are going to see him because we have not really seen him yet in uniform and be like, that doesn't look like a typical running back. And I think people are going to be surprised at just how big he is, because I think we've seen it in the past with other players who leave marginally good college football programs and come to a place like Ohio State, and then physically they just become a totally different person. And we've seen the incoming freshmen gaining this weight and changing their bodies. And I think the biggest jump we actually see is when it's players from other schools come into Ohio State, because they already sort of understand what it takes. And so to me, it's CJ Donaldson and Ethan Anianwa, because that dude is a freak when we saw him the first time. And I think that when tomorrow is all said and done and pictures start populating the Twitter feeds, people are going to see Anianwa and Donaldson and be like, oh my gosh, that looks different than I would have expected.
Yeah. I would say probably Logan George. As I don't recall, we saw a couple of those guys popping around during the playoff run when we got to go in there, just walking on the field before games and stuff, but I don't recall seeing Logan George there. Maybe I just missed him. Okay. So, but I want to I'm excited about that addition. Watching him on some of the Idaho State stuff that's available to watch on YouTube. He's obviously a really good player at that level. But I want to be reassured, I guess, that he sort of looks like an Ohio State defensive lineman. And we've kind of burned this guy a couple times. But I remember when they got Vic Cutler, and he was like spring practice, that dude doesn't look like he can play at Ohio State. Yeah. So and I'm not saying that I'm going to feel the same way about Logan George, but I would like to just show up, watch that defensive line group run down to there into the field, start doing stuff, and be yeah, that guy looks like he belongs. So he's pretty high up on the list for me. I was going to say Jarquez Carter, but I guess he's on early enrolled. So he can't be.
Jarquez is there.
He is?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll put him on the list too then.
Poor Vic Cutler.
Yeah. Sorry, man, but
it didn't work out. It's
it didn't work out.
the highest profile disappointment, I guess, since Ohio State has tapped in the portal. Although that class, there was another one in it. We don't need to talk about that. That's in the past. We're going to move on, and we're going to move on to the start. I guess it's a more like an official start for the 2025 Ohio State Buckeyes when spring practice begins, lining up perfectly as a holiday, St. Patrick's Day. We're going to be out there. We're going to have snap judgments with some practice observations from that opening hour. We're going to be at Roosters for the live show, and then we'll have some more takeaways, Tuesday takeaways on the podcast daily. So we're going to try and learn as much as we possibly can with the opportunity in front of us, and we're very grateful for it. And we thank you for joining us to start your day on the podcast.
Busy day, right? We've got obviously the podcast daily, which you're starting your day with at 5 a.m. We'll have Ryan Day's press conference live at 11, and then we'll have snap judgments following the press conference. Then we'll have the live show at Roosters starting at 2 o'clock probably, but not online till about 5 instead of the normal 2 like everyone's expecting.
Well, I hope you get to Roosters by 1 because that's when we're scheduled to begin. So
that's weird. As we sit here recording this on Monday morning, I haven't received a text yet to suggest what time we're doing that. So normally I would receive that from one of my coworkers who is normally on the show with me. So that's why I was just assuming we were going to do it at 2 like we normally would on these sort of days. So if I've missed a text message at this point in the afternoon, I apologize. I'll check my phone to make sure I didn't get one. Nope, didn't get it. So I'm not sure how the hell I was supposed to know that.
Well, it doesn't matter because you're already in Columbus because it's Monday morning. So I was just going to make sure that you were tagging along with me to a fun casual joint. We're going to be there later, and we're going to be in the Woody in like 3 hours, and I can't wait to be there. Thanks for joining us on the podcast daily. Have a great St. Patrick's Day. For Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham, I'm Austin Ward. We'll see you later.